Thank you for sharing your journey in a summary of your experiences. I want to learn more about your initiatives, particularly outside your work or with alongside your work, particularly your role in the Criminal Bar Association and also with the Australian Academy of Sciences.
Sure.
So could you share
Okay.
more about what motivates you to be advocating in those areas? Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think those things are part and parcel of becoming more senior in the profession and having opportunities to contribute and to provide some leadership.
Thank you for
The AAFS has been constant, and we've tried to really bring it forward and to try and really have a lot of plenary sessions which are interesting
Mhm.
to people, annual general meetings where we have speakers, and we've had some symposia which have worked very well. As it turns out, Rochelle Castro came to one of our AGMs
Oh.
a couple of years ago, where for the first time I was introduced to Cora de Ungria, who's a forensic scientist from Manila, and her
Mm.
husband, Jojo Jose, who's a defence criminal lawyer in Manila. That was about 18 months ago, and they were out here and they spoke in tandem at our annual general meeting. And from that, a friendship has developed, and that morphs into what's happened in the Philippines. So,
That's what I want to ask you about. From that, I want to ask you what motivates you to be advocating or be so passionate about contributing to the Philippine-Australian bilateral dialogue, particularly in the legal field, in judicial management, forensic sciences, particularly with the your contribution in the development and launch of the recently launched National Forensic Institute in UP Manila. So could you
mm.
share more about your motivations in that? Yeah.
All right. Well, look, I suppose the ultimate motivation is that, was what I said before. I have a family who, in part, originates out of the Philippines. So, in that sense, I've had an enduring interest in the country. I've followed its ups and downs right from the very beginning of when I met my wife, and they have Filipino blood, and I want them to, the children and the grandchildren, to respect and appreciate their heritage. So that's a large part of why I'm interested, and I would like to see them uh, contribute if they can, and as if I can, to the betterment of the country. For the first time last Christmas, we took our grandchildren to Manila for 3 weeks, and we had a wonderful 3 week holiday in Manila, and that was their first introduction to life in the Philippines and the culture. And so, from my point of view, it's an opportunity to give something back to the country because I'm very fond of the country. And I think as I'm getting obviously older and the finish line is in sight, for me, in terms of my profession, this has now become an opportunity to spend more time in the Philippines and to contribute to such an important series of projects in the country to the betterment of the Philippines, but also to the betterment of our own country in Australia. So all of that, it's all I've got skin in the game. This is what I told an audience at a colloquium last year in Manila when we had a large number of people in the audience talking about the development of the institute.
Could you share us more about those initiatives, particularly what is the National Forensic Institute about? Could you share?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll introduce that by saying I suppose fell into it in a way because halfway through last year, my wife and I decided to have a 2 week holiday in the middle of winter here in Melbourne. We thought, well, we want to get away. Let's not go to Noosa or to anywhere like that. Let's go to the Philippines. We hadn't been for a little while, so we decided to do that. Now, my friends in the Philippines, essentially Cora de Ungria, I emailed and said, look, we're coming, like to catch up. So that, and if anyone knows Cora, she's an indefatigable woman who you can't say no to. She said, look, could you possibly just come and have a chat to some of my students? Because she works at UP in forensic, in DNA particularly. Come and have a talk to some of my students, please. Well, that morphed into the 3 presentations that I talked to you about at 3 different universities. And indeed it involved other speakers as well. And I hadn't realised the extent of what I was getting into. And of course, the other thing that happened is that through Cora, who had connections into the Australian Embassy, the embassy came aware of the fact that a Supreme Court judge was coming to Manila, which is not something that happens every day. So they arranged a tour of the Supreme Court of the Philippines during that trip. We met a number of the judges and the Chief Justice, Gesmundo, there, and also we had a number of meetings with the Australian ambassador. What I hadn't known was that the Australian government had embarked on what they call the Fair Justice Program. I'm not sure if any of your audience know much about fair justice, but if you search fair justice on the internet, you will see that it was a development that tied in with the strategic plan for judicial innovations in the Supreme Court of the Philippines, where they're trying to obviously develop a more effective role for the court. The Australian government supports that and has funded the Fair Justice Program. It's certainly really worth having a look at the publicity about fair justice. And it really is put forward. It began in April 2024, and it's a reform program, and it is designed to enhance a strategic partnership between Australia and the Philippines, and it is complementing the Supreme Court strategic plan, which I'll read from a little bit of the writing about it. Fair justice seeks to improve access to justice, especially for vulnerable people, the vulnerable groups, by supporting judicial reforms in the Supreme Court across the whole of the Philippine judiciary. And it really is designed particularly in a 5-year program to enhance the administration of justice for women, children and Indigenous people and people with disabilities and other socially disadvantaged groups. Now, a lot of this sprung out of the war on drugs, which we're all familiar with, and that was the Fair Justice Program followed a commitment made by the Philippine government in Geneva to establish an independent forensic science laboratory, a death investigation system, because at the moment the Philippines does not have a formal death investigation system, and it has 2 forensic pathologists in the whole of the country that are qualified independent forensic pathologists. So the first is Raquel Fortune, who many people know, but also Cecilia Lim, who she works with, and they work out of UP Manila. They do autopsies on people who have bodies that have been provided to them through various means, and again associated essentially with arising out of the war on drugs. So all of these things were coming together and working together, and a little bit unknowns to me until I got to Manila and suddenly found out that this was a project that was happening. The embassy then asked me to go back to Manila in late August, September last year with Professor Stephen Cordner and also Professor Richard Bassett from Monash University. And we spent a week in Manila engaging with stakeholders, all the stakeholders, including the embassy, the Supreme Court, We went to Malacanang
Mm-hmm.
and engaged with Executive Secretary Bersamin and basically began really getting the agreements to develop the Independent Forensic Institute. Since then, we've been working amongst all of us to put this forward, and it resulted ultimately in a lot of people doing a lot of work and the launch of the Institute just a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who wants to watch the video product of that should search National Forensic Institute of the Philippines. It's all there. You can see what happened in the launch and the formalities and all of the familiar faces. Executive Secretary Bersamin spoke and committed again the Philippines to the development of the Institute, the Independent Institute, involving the development of not only a building, and they actually stood on the plot of where the building is going to be, just at the side of UP Manila. But also this involves the development of a joint master's degree between University of the Philippines and Monash University. So that's been developing as well. So this is a very exciting project and driven to a large part by our Australian ambassador, HKU, who currently is the ambassador in the Philippines, who is a driving force. So it's launched, it's off and running, and President Jimenez also is extremely supportive and has promised funding from the University of the Philippines, funding from the government, and funding from the Australian government. Now, as well as that, there's a side project that's also developed when the Supreme Court reached out to me late last year and asked for some advice and support in developing a training module for the Philippine judiciary. So in large part, this is a slightly different event that's happening, but with connections to what's happening with the Independent Institute. So the court, mainly through Justice Singh, Philomena Singh of the Supreme Court, we've now had 5 or 6 Zoom meetings with her and her judges, and developing and moving through the process of developing a training module, which we hopefully will roll out at the beginning of next year. And we're hoping that it will, affect all of the judiciary across the Philippines, but particularly the trial courts. Where the trial courts are the ones that really are needing assistance with how they manage expert evidence. For instance, how they examine expert reports, how they might improve expert reports, how lawyers might introduce expert reports into court proceedings, and how lawyers might best examine in evidence in chief experts, but also cross-examine and make legal submissions about admissibility of evidence. So we're hoping that we'll be able to develop this to a point where judges who have cried out for assistance, will be better placed. And we're hoping that we will be able to bring experts in the field from not only Australia, but from other countries to be able to contribute to the project. So it also is an exciting project. So those two things are running in parallel, which means I think next year looking like it's going to be a very busy year with developing these things and hopefully getting them off the ground in the Philippines. So